Buy yourself a gun. What? Gun. What? Like a handgun. For personal protection. If somebody tries to mug you. What? What if your government tries to throw you in a can? What? You're gonna want a shotgun. Oh. What? An automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo. Gun? Yeah, gun.
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like a Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. Jack booty cops in riot gear, gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension fund. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta drag them through the streets.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Tuesday. This is PrimerTime on UCY.TV. My name is Michael, and I am on the road.
Michael, good to have you. I'm Nick, and for another edition of PrimerTime.
Nick, how you doing tonight?
Well, it's a very wet and starting to get cold, fall evening out here on the East Coast, and we got rain all day, and it was the driving kind of soaking rain, and actually can start to hear raindrops hitting the house pretty heavily tonight. So I think we're going to get some.
This leftovers from Hurricane Patricia that's hitting here.
No, this is actually a different cold front that's coming up from the Atlantic Basin. And it's going to probably link up with that and give us a period of the next 72 hours.
We had a little bit of the leftovers, nothing like was forecast. We did not get the 40 inches of rain as they were saying, 10 inches on the first day and then 2.5 feet on the second day. We didn't get any of that. We did not get any of the serious wind that they thought we were going to get. We probably only got gusts of about 30 miles an hour. So once again, they'll live in line.
Yeah, I think the only weather that are qualified to do their jobs are the weather people that operate down there in Mexico. They have it going on.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, the Mexican weather girls that's a gift right there. And damn Trump if he's going to try and.
Well, I think they're closely related to the Fanta girls, and if you know anything about the Fanta girls, those are exactly the types of people that we want to immigrate to the United States.
Yeah, I'm going to say we need more Mexican weather girls. That's exactly what we need.
That and the Mexicana airline stewardesses.
Those will work as well.
Yeah. So
I gotta get to the meat.
Go ahead. I was going to give you the story of the day that kind of says, hey, wake up, folks. We've got the Europeans who have for 70 plus years screamed about why guns are evil and people that hoard guns and people that hold guns are mentally unstable. It seems that in Austria and Czech Republic that firearms are flying off the shelves, and it's being attributed to the public's fear of the Muslim or Islamic invasion of their countries as these travelers make their way to Germany and Sweden, where they have very lax immigration policies.
Now, would you actually describe that as fear, or would you describe that as a step in the direction of preparation? To me, that it's almost a step in the direction of preparation.
Well, see, the way I look at it is this: you have to be presidents of Europe. Anybody who knows the history knows that a Polish king named Sobieski stopped the Ottomans at the gates of Vienna. So, yeah, I think that you could say there's historical precedence for these invasions to happen. It's still an invasion. It's just taking a different method or a different approach.
It's an authorized invasion.
Yeah, it is, and it's because gun ownership across Europe is by no means is there a Second Amendment anywhere or anything in their constitutions that allows the individual the God-given right to own and bear firearms. These are highly controlled, highly regulated policies that does everything it can to keep firearms out of the hands of the average citizen. It's still looked at as an endeavor for the elites and people that have a genuine interest in firearms, being that they're competition sports shooters or that there are hunters or that they deal in a business that has a high probability of bodily injury if they don't defend themselves, such as a jeweler or somebody that travels with large sums of cash.
Yeah, man.
Right.
Now let me what did you find the gun laws say in Germany or in France? Find them to be a little more lax, a little more to an American liking, or they're not going to make it to. I mean, they're not going to make it to the level of an American can go over there and say, this ain't so bad. It's bad. It's bad no matter which way you slice it. When you get to Czech Republic or you get to Austria, they are less restrictive than Germany, but they are still head and shoulders and knee deep in restrictions beyond what we have. And the idea is that more gun laws creates less gun crime. The problem is that more gun laws creates more people who are unable to legally defend themselves. Now, with the gun laws that are sitting like they are in Austria and the Czech Republic, are there taxes levied on these items, and then like an ammunition tax that kind of puts it prohibitive? Because, like as we discussed earlier a couple days ago, hunting is quite expensive in that area, and for somebody to buy a lease or rent a lease in the United States, you probably pay about $1,200 a year, and you were saying that it's more like $10,000.
It is significantly more expensive to be able to hunt in ways that we would do it. Like, say, for example, if you had a hunting lease in the States, you've got all access. You can hunt how you want according to what's available for use in the seasons. Germany, for example, it's the use of firearms is so heavily regulated that, number one, you have to be able to be sure that you're of sound mind and body first and foremost before you can even be considered to have the permits to own firearms. So we're talking you need to have a local background check from whatever they call it a Polizei direction, which is basically like your police district. You actually have to go and pay the $3,000 for a hunting course that lasts 6 months, and it consists of a shooting exam, a hands-on safety demonstration, an oral exam, and a written exam. And that's just to be considered qualified to buy the license. So whereas in the States you can walk down to your local Walmart, flash your ID, pay whatever amount of money it is for the state hunting license, and then whatever appropriate tags you want to get, you can generally walk out about $60 and have a license in Texas. In Germany, not so much. Everything there relies on stamps. Every stamp you get costs a minimum 100 euros. And in order to get a hunting license, you buy it in either a single year or 3-year increments. And if you get it for a 3-year increment, it costs you 190 euros. And in 2011's money, that worked out to be about $350. Right now, they're pretty close to 1-to-1. So, you're going to probably walk out of there with $200 for a 3-year license.
what are the taxes? Are there any extra taxes associated with buying a firearm or buying a box of ammunition? I mean, there's the normal value-added tax that the Europeans are used to paying, but is there also like an actual firearms or an ammunitions tax that's solely for those two items?
No, and what you're saying is like akin to like a sin tax, and not really. You're going to pay a flat 19% VAT tax, so your value-added tax is 19%, and that's added on to the cost of, say you've got a box of ammunition, 20 rounds that cost you 30 euros. You're going to pay closer to 50 euros by the time it's all said and done, figuring the VAT tax. Prices over there are much more expensive for basic rifles. I bought a Brown X in 2009, and that rifle cost me 900 euros, which in dollars at the time was closer to $1,200. And you can probably look on Gunbroker and find a Browning X Bolt for about $900. So you're if you're looking really hard, I think right now you can probably find that a little bit cheaper. That's something I have noticed in the past couple of weeks is the prices of rifles are coming down, which I find it kind of ironic in the face of the challenges we're facing today. And looks like the Los Angeles confiscation of the magazines is going to go through. I believe I read that it's not going to be heard. The case is not going to be heard. That the ruling to confiscate is going to stand. Well, it's interesting because I think that this is all going to boil down to, this is going to go to, the circuit courts of appeals, and eventually this will all make its way to the Supreme Court. And, it's interesting to me that we have these justices who, legislate from their perch on high, and they've already decided this case that the Second Amendment, is protective of an individual's right to bear arms. But what they are also saying that different municipalities have the right to further legislate restrictions on the ownership of those firearms. And I see those two judgments as totally conflictive. And I think we lost Michael there for a second, so we're going to keep trucking.
I do as well.
Oh, okay, there you go. You're back.
Something that's fairly interesting is that did I get it back? All right. I find that those rulings to be kind of interesting in the light that we're not seeing any more reviews of any cases since the Heller agreement with the Supreme Court. I've noticed that they've declined to take many of those cases.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it does is it pushes it back. Those cases go back to the lower district courts, or they just let those rulings stand when they refuse to hear them. So I think that we're in interesting times because different district courts or circuit courts of appeal across the nation have different makeups, and they rule accordingly. When you're out west, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, they're notoriously liberally stacked court. They're the court that, if you remember, was saying that the Pledge of Allegiance could not be said in the Western states because of the term "under God." So, it's interesting that I think we're going to come to one of those decisions that's going to be implemented like the gay marriage law, where if a large proportion of the states or a larger majority of the states, have laws that protect gun ownership or don't restrict the individual rights, I think that they're headed for a showdown, just like where they issued the ruling that said, a majority of the states now allow gay marriage, so it has to be recognized across the country. And like I said, we've covered it on a previous show. That has more implications for gun owners than I think people are ready to understand, because when you look at the same thing with concealed carry, there's a majority of states that allow concealed carry than the states that don't. So using the same logic, which is what the court frequently does when they go to the due process clause and things like that, they're going to have to see that they may have opened up a can of worms they weren't really ready to.
Well, that's fairly interesting, and Also, there's another case that's out there which kind of could throw another wrinkle into this. There's an Amish fellow in Ohio who's bringing a religious aspect into this, where he's trying for a concealed weapons permit, yet he does not wish to show a picture ID because it violates his religious precepts.
Yeah, but you know what? Those guys, they're always looking for the loopholes. And it's been said before, I believe General Washington said it best, is this country cannot be destroyed from the enemy without, will be destroyed from the enemy within.
Well, I think, any sort of restriction is the enemy, as we've seen. And any sort of restriction just further serves to and strengthen the enemy. What we discussed last week with Hillary Clinton and the magazine restrictions and the gun buybacks that she's discussing.
Yeah, the buybacks for property the government never owned.
Right. And not at a commensurate rate by any means. The numbers I've seen is $200 for a handgun, $100 for a shotgun, and $300 for a quote-unquote assault rifle. That's not even anywhere near the value of these items.
Yeah.
So, we're headed to some interesting times, and I think that people are responding to that again. I was able to visit the big box store and head towards the ammunition section, and I did notice that the higher end performance ammunition was starting to disappear again. There was not quite the selection of hollow points or plus P rounds in a calibers, but there was 22 on the shelf.
It's interesting. I actually did stop by a pawn shop in my area the other day. It's a guy, and this is a local gentleman. People would say he talks real slow, but I found him to be an interesting guy, and I got to talking to him, and just asked him about some of the firearms that he has on the shelf, because I noticed that the last time that I was in there, it doesn't seem like he's really sold a whole lot, and for a guy that seen a lot of your inventory, and he goes, well, I set my prices accordingly, and people will buy what they want to buy, and when times are lean, people can't afford it, but when people have a need, they'll find the money to come in and pay for what I'm selling. And I found it real interesting, because almost every single one of the firearms on his shelf had a major defect in terms of maintenance. Whether it was pitted barrels, rust on receivers, bolts that didn't quite lock and unlock, without a hitch. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, you could probably end up charging it quite a bit more if you even took a half a minute to maintain these.
Well, and what would be his investment on that? That would be required another employee at say $10 or $12 an hour. Because, well, honestly, you don't want to pay the guy who you're putting in charge of, legally registered items at this point. As they sit in the FFL's book, you don't want to pay that guy $7 an hour to watch your stocks. You have to pay this guy a little bit of money. He's going to have some sort of skill, and that comes with the price tag as well. Maybe he doesn't see the value in that.
Well, I think
he's kind of looking for the post rush.
Yeah, it could be, but I think it's even more simple than that. I think that he sees that there's a profit margin to be made. He does buy and purchase firearms from people, and he did say that people that come to him tend to sell under distressed situations or under duress. So he said that he's paying probably 1/3 to 2/3 of whatever value that he can assess on that price of the firearm. So
I'm guessing it's probably closer to the 1/3. I've seen people take firearms into shops and try to trade them in, so to speak, on a new item, and boy, they just got bent over royally. I've seen firearms that could be sold easily on the secondhand market or on the secondary market, the used market, for in the neighborhood of $600-700, and the guy at the shop is offering $200. And I think he's playing on the fact that you may not know what you got. You may not know exactly how the used item works. So once again, education comes in and it works out in your favor.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that just the nature of pawnbrokering is such that people tend to not come see you to purchase items. People come see you to sell items a lot of times, and it's his right to run a legal business, and he runs his business model the way he sees fit. But I genuinely feel sorry for folks that don't take the time to really determine what it is that they've got and know what the going value is of the items that they're trying to sell. So I think that
and we do normally see that when people decide to sell a firearm that they've owned. It is usually due to like a severe financial crisis. I don't really know people who sell off this so they can buy another. That's not generally how my acquaintances operate. It's more if they have to sell a firearm it's because they're in a cash crunch.
Well, I see it both ways. I do see people's taking something from their collection that maybe they don't shoot often, or they bought and they've just kind of had it in their safe. The ubiquitous safe queen. We've all seen it listing on our gun boards that everybody that's selling a rifle is selling a safe queen. Taken out once, fired, put back in the safe, never touched again. That there's that aspect of it. So I can see that some people would say that they're selling one of those to fund a new project, and I see that quite frequently, as a matter of fact. But I do agree with you in the sense that when people tend to sell their firearms, it's because they're facing some kind of financial difficulty. It's not that they want to do it. Maybe it's by necessity.
Right, and unfortunately, they do not get really what the value is if they take it to a pawn shop or to a firearms dealer, an FFL.
Yeah,
usually in that situation, it is better for you to sell it on the used market face to face. A personal sale, which kind of brings us back into like the gun show loophole thing that they're talking about, which really is a misnomer. There is no gun show loophole because every brand new firearm sold at a gun show is liable to the same background checks and FFL procedure as a gun sold in the brick and mortar shop. Really, what they'd like to shut down is the personal sales aspect,
right?
Which would eliminate somebody selling a rifle to a friend because he needs a couple $100, and that takes away that ability right there. And,
and the argument there,
weapons aren't used to crime.
Yeah, usually the argument is that is an unlicensed, unregulated sale, and all that most states that authorize an individual to conduct legal commerce between themselves, especially when it comes to firearms, is the reasonable expectation that the person you're intending to complete the sale or the transfer with is not a felon and is legally eligible to own firearms. There's no individual check that you must perform or that you have to complete. And I think that's where the antis and the people who are really afraid of personal firearms ownership, that you can't argue with the emotional argument, no matter how much rational information you attempt to give somebody. When they've got their heart invested in that emotional argument, there's no amount of truth that can help them, sway their opinion the other way. So, you just got to create more people who do tend to want to have that ability to, see and sell what their property as they see fit.
Well, and then you bring up the emotional argument aspect. I've seen in this last week more emotional argument than I like to see. Recently, the head of the FBI came out and said that police are being kowtowed by the ability of videos to be placed on YouTube. And especially in Chicago, where the Mossad mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, had mentioned that police are afraid and they're in a fetal position over the fact that they may be videotaped. And somehow he was able to weave that into the gun ownership article. And I'm really not happy with the emotional dribble. It's showing a lack of forethought and a lack of rational ability.
Yeah, and it's the same argument. You're as a gun owner, you tend to be able to articulate the reasons why you have to own a firearm, the reasons why you want to have a magazine that holds more than a certain number of rounds. You don't get that same argument back the other way when it's like, why do you want to use a Toyota vehicle that has a problem with its airbags and that kills people? Is it just because you want to save the environment? There's an endless number of criticisms that you can throw at anyone because of their choice to do something or purchase something. It just seems to me that, you can take the example of whenever there's a crime that involves a vehicle, whenever there's a crime that involves, passion, whenever there's a crime that involves money, the question is, how could you do that, or why did you do that? The individual onus is there. But any time that there's a crime that is committed where a firearm is used, we need to blame the firearm. When the individual this past weekend plowed into the crowd in Oklahoma State during the parade, you did not hear the call for common sense automobile control or common sense white woman control. You did not hear that. And I really,
no, absolutely not.
Yeah, and I think that we really have to sit here and see what it is that we're up against.
Well, what we're up against is just rational, knee-jerk, pure emotion-driven reaction. We've seen that none of these arguments actually are based in any sort of logic. The arguments are completely 100% based in fear. They're based in lies. They're based in half-truths. It's really not. It's not where we should be as a nation, and it's not where we should be as well as free Americans. When we start seeing, people like Hillary Clinton, who are is completely calling for the Australia-style ban.
Oh, it's not just her. You have the president who is on board with that.
Oh yeah, well he's been on board with that for quite a while, and I don't think we've got anything to be worried about from Obama. I think a lot of people would like to say that at this point he's a lame duck, so that anything he wants to do, he will get done. And I don't know. Honestly, I don't think that he's going to do anything along those lines. I think he's got other plans. I think he will not want his legacy tarnished, so to speak, when it comes down to the firearms issue.
It's funny you mention that, because anybody you can ask and you say, hey, what is the one thing that President Obama was able to accomplish during his time in office? And most people will sit there and say, oh, he got the signature bit of legislation for healthcare, through Congress. Well, it's easy to do that when you have a near supermajority in the houses of Congress, and there's almost there's no cooperation between the different political parties to get that through. So if you can call that an achievement, I guess that's like it's like having a pasta eating contest without Italy present. Yeah. You really kind of stack the deck in your favor there.
That also kind of brings to mind something that happened over this last week, and it's kind of off the subject of firearms, but it's definitely within the subject because it has to do with the election, and it has to do with, your ongoing rights. And just something I found to be kind of interesting was Jeb Bush over the weekend said that he's got better shit to do than be president.
Oh,
and
God bless him.
yeah, please get to it. Go hang gliding with on $1 million or whatever it is. Jet skiing on the Golden Lake or something. Because honestly, I think America has said that they don't want another Bush. He's polling it at 3%. He's what you could call a faux conservative. He's I think he's far more of a globalist than an American. I don't think he's a friend to gun owners. He's actually come out and said that he does not own a firearm. He's blamed a lot of things on the Tea Party, which I think is kind of lame to be blaming things on the Tea Party when there's really not a lot of Tea Party members of the House or Senate. it's more well, now it's a co-opted movement of citizenry, but I find it odd that that's kind of the pervasive message that the people who are after the idea of freedom are ruining America. And fairly interesting, neocon Bill Kristol, who, well, he's got a lot of ties to our favorite Israel, has come out and said that if Trump gets the nomination, he's going to vote third party, which I don't know if you'll recall, but Trump was made to sign a pledge saying that if he runs and he does not get the nomination, that he will stay on the Republican ticket. He will not join a third party program.
Right. And that comes from the Republican committee. But you can pretty much take an agreement that you make with Trump, and it won't be worth the paper that it's printed on.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that I trust Trump any further than I can throw him. What I am finding is the double speak from both sides to be overpowering. And when somebody like Bill Kristol says that he will not participate in the process that he basically voiced, and it not only voiced his support for, but really he was the one who was making all the noise for Trump to sign the pledge to not run third party. Now, if he's going to be doing that, where do we stand?
Well, here's the thing. I think that anybody that's halfway intelligent can take a look at Trump's history and see that, number one, he's not a conservative individual. He's very spendthrift in terms of his finances, both professional and personal, and that kind of spits in the face of what a conservative mindset is, at least financially. He said that he's taken advantage of the laws that are afforded to people when he's made poor business decisions, and those business decisions really resulted in the closure of some of his individual ventures. So you can take it one way, in the sense that he's a businessman. He's going to say anything he can to close a deal. I
believe that's the biggest message we got to come out of this with, is Trump will say anything he can to close the deal.
Yeah, certainly. And, in terms that he's going to do whatever it does to close a deal, the man is a closer. If you've seen Glenn Ross, you know about the world of high pressure sales.
Just ABC, and he does not get the steak knives.
Yeah,
I will say that. Now, also in that, his profession to be a firearms enthusiast and a gun owner, just like you and I to me rings a tad hollow. I don't doubt that Donald Trump owns a firearm. I mean, he's got $400 billion, as he's really happy to tell everybody. I'm sure he's got a couple of everything. I'm not necessarily impressed by that. I think it's a little more telling that Jeb Bush does not own a firearm and is more than willing to tell everybody he doesn't own a firearm. I think that means he kind of doesn't live on the same level as everybody else. He's not got the same concerns as the everyman. He's got somebody else who looks out for his own safety and his family's security. He doesn't have to do it. He pays
certainly
to do it.
And it's the same argument with Hillary Clinton on the other side. Hillary Clinton has absolutely no need for firearms because she has a Secret Service detail for the rest of her life.
Right. And well, that's just not good enough for her, so she's got to take yours because, well, you're just little people, and really, what do you know?
Well, Hillary Clinton's big on making sure that, she stands by the women who have faced sexual assault, just not those who face sexual assault from her husband. So, when the Clintons come out and talk about wanting firearms control, that means that they want to control the firearms, and you can ask Ron Brown about that.
Yeah, that's right. Now, anybody who's unaware of who Ron Brown is, Ron Brown was the secretary, I believe he was the Commerce Secretary during Bill Clinton's tenure, and he basically said he was going to spill the beans if he had to go to jail on a couple of items. And he died in a plane crash in, I believe it was going into Croatia or into Kosovo.
Yeah, it was into like Bosnia, Serbia.
It's someplace during that whole mess. And his body was recovered from the wreckage, and it had 2 45 caliber holes in the back of his head, not consistent with any parts of the airplane.
Yeah, it's and that's one of those things that it's amazing for folks that want to have gun control enacted across the country. You cross the Clintons, you're liable to wind up dead from senseless firearm violence.
Get Arkansas, that is a serious concern. And just like as an aside, I listened to the Democratic debate last week, and I didn't actually watch it. I just listened to it, and I was able to catch a portion of it, and it was very smarmy and very, very much the paid speak. And then right after that was the Senate hearings on Benghazi. And think of what you will of the Benghazi. I mean, there's people who think that this is the greatest crime ever. This is, to me, this is just game as usual with them. But I found it to be very interesting. Her demeanor. She was very calm, cool, and collected, and to the point where she was ignoring the evidence that was being proffered by the senators. Ma'am, please refer to page 31 of the handbook. And I'm sure you have my emails. I'm sure you're fine. Well, she was referring to an email, and I don't remember exactly what the gist of the email was, but it put her in sort of a bad light. And immediately her tone changed, and it was, who wrote that email? Yeah, it was a little bit creepy the way that she went from being the nation's grandmother to Cruella DeVille on the, just at the mention of this email.
Yeah, and not only that, everybody with a brain knows that Hillary Clinton has broken just about every law she could break, whether it was get elected to Congress, pass laws instituting a pay raise for which she herself was later acceding to. Or whether it was dealings with land corporations in Arkansas, whether it was controlling and subverting funds meant for
or cattle futures at the very least, the cattle futures. I mean, anybody who turns $10,000 into $100,000 in the span of 24 hours betting on cows is pretty damn good. They shouldn't do anything but on cows.
Yeah. So I mean, the whole problem that I see is that we have the one side of the house where you have socialism being touted as morally superior to conservatism and or capitalism, or that capitalism itself is morally wrong. And that's the Bernie Sanders take on it. But you really can't see any difference between what Hillary's saying, because like our favorite Democrat National Committee chairperson from South Florida, the very aptly and Irishly named Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She
I believe that's an Inuit derivative.
Yes. Yes. Well, it's one of those things where the entire process, when asked if you're one of your front running candidates is a socialist, what is the difference between socialism and your party? And it can't be it can't be really delineated. Then I think that's one of the questions that's one of the questions that cannot be asked, and we see that with the complete lack of transparency in the Democratic debates. And I'm not necessarily picking on the Democrats' side, because I'm going to tell you what, the Republicans are scumbags as well. Looking at just some recent news, there's going to be a debate held in Israel. Yeah, and I'm kind of apprehensive about reading into that one. I believe the source was the Huffington Post on that.
It was.
So automatically I take anything that comes out of that rag with a very hefty grain of salt.
As would I, but Huffington Post wasn't the only source that reported on that. Politico, which is another politics-minded news source also reported on it. And, well,
yeah, I mean, do you see that as an
I
opportunity to kiss the ring?
I think that's an opportunity to put on the patriotic knee pads and really show America who is boss. And no, it wouldn't be a ring that they're going to kiss, and I don't believe it's kissing actually. I think it's a completely other loving act. Yeah, I don't find that to be in the nation's best interest by any means. And as we've seen with the recent violence in Palestine and Israel, there has been a call to arm people of the Jewish faith or Israeli citizens, and which basically comes down to people of the Jewish faith. Because if you're an Arab Israeli who's not a Jew, you are not getting a firearm.
Yeah, certainly not. And that's one of those things that, for a country that claims to deal with terrorism on a daily or near daily basis, you would expect that
they deal with terrorism on a daily basis. We've got the receipts.
Yeah, I know. I'm being facetious. So what I'm saying is that you would expect that their population to be able to be armed and allowed to defend themselves instead of just relying on the IDF. Well, yeah, that's not the case. You talk about levels of gun control that would make Hillary Clinton moist. They do the same thing.
And really, what we're seeing about the gun control is it's not that they're anti-gun, because they're very much pro-gun as long as they control the guns and you have the gun.
Yeah, definitely.
That's really the end. And once again, that kind of goes into my thought process that a firearm is your last best way to say, no, I do not comply. And they wish to take that away from you because they want you to comply. They want you to get on that bus. They want you to get on that train, to go to that camp, to get in that line, to sign this paper. And if it takes the force of a gun, they're okay with that.
Yeah,
but they do not want you to have...
So long as they have the guns and you don't.
That's exactly it. So I'm really more of the mindset that now more than ever, it's very important for people to have a smaller sized handgun. And really the only reason I'm saying a smaller sized handgun is because it's concealable. And a smaller sized handgun of a caliber that you're comfortable with at the largest caliber you're comfortable with. Although now, if you're only comfortable with the 22, I would sure say that a 22 is a damn sight better than a sharp stick and some harsh words.
Yeah, like what is required to be used in England is the stop, or I'll say stop again. That's the method.
I shall use some emphasis on my second stop.
Exactly. And that's one thing I haven't seen. I haven't seen a big push in the new gun market in terms of personal defense. What I'm seeing right now is a lot of resale of some shotguns that may have been modified and taken a stock down to give you a pistol grip. Whether it's a Mossberg Persuader or a Cruiser or an 1187 police issue or something like that.
Yeah, how do you feel about pistol grips on shotgun?
Well, here's the thing. I look at it from a perspective of, if I'm going to use this tool, this implement, can I use it at a consistently high level where I have a probability to do what I want to do on a consistent basis? I would say that with a shotgun, they have a stock for a reason. If you remove the stock, you're basically robbing yourself of a stable shooting platform. Now, granted, if you're shooting birdshot or buckshot, okay, at a certain distance, as long as you're in the general vicinity of the center mass of a target, you're probably going to score some hits. But if you're not competent with that weapon, taking the stock off and replacing it with a pistol grip makes you no more capable than if you had the stock to begin with. And as a matter of fact, I think I'm going to have to agree with you on that.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that. I am a former owner of a Mossberg 500 Persuader, which is the pistol grip version of the 500 shotgun. And the 500 shotgun itself is it's a workhorse. It's a damn fine shotgun. Nobody is underarmed with one of those. If you become familiar with it, it will serve you well. And not only that, it's a little bit of fun. Well, in my younger days, the pistol grip shotgun has its own panache, and that was right about the time of the Terminator, and the one-handed racking of the pump and all that.
Yeah, that wasn't a pump.
And
That was a lever action.
well, I believe there was a pump shotgun in a pistol grip pump shotgun, and I believe it was a Spaz is what they used in one of those movies. But you're playing around with it, and I was young and dumb and all that, and so we took this brand new Mossberg 500 with a pistol grip out, and took out 4 boxes of cheapy birdshot, dove and quail, rabbit and squirrel. Might have even been target load. I know that it wasn't any more than like $3 a box because, well, I just didn't have that kind of money back then. And went out and probably fired, I would say, 75 of those 100 rounds. And I couldn't write my name for the next 2 days with my right hand. It puts a lot of punishment in that hand. And something else that I noticed that with the standard 18.5-inch barrel, which is what makes it legal, and along with the 26-inch overall length, I wasn't necessarily accurate with it.
Right. And like I said, that's to be expected. One of the things that you'll see now is that on some of the more recent model manufacturers from Mossberg, I think it's a Model 930. It's a shotgun with rifle sights on it. So
I like that. I
think that's a wise business decision to make those sights available, and whether you're using the rifle style sights on your shotgun or whether you go to a scoped shotgun, whether it be for turkeys or whether it be for deer. I'll tell you what. If you can't handle stuff, hitting hard on your shoulder, like from a 12 gauge, move down to the 20, because the 20 gauge, I would just about anything a 12 can do.
I think a 20 gauge will do everything a 12 gauge can do, except bruise your shoulder is bad.
Exactly.
I really think so. Something I've noticed with a shotgun that I've in a couple that I've fired in the not too distant past, I happen to like ghost ring sights. Now those are, I don't think anybody puts ghost ring sights factory on their shotguns, and they do cost, in the neighborhood of $50 to $100 for a decent set of ghost ring sights, but they remarkably improve your accuracy. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to use anything like that, but I really like ghost ring sights on a shotgun.
Yeah. So, and I think that what you're talking about is like on that Model 930 Mossberg. It's called the SPX shotgun. And like I said, it's got the rear sight and the front sight aperture. That's just going to help you get quite a bit more accurate, placement of rounds. On that Mossberg 930, basically you're looking at a overall length of 48.5 inches. So it is not a short barreled shotgun in any sense.
No, that's going to have at least a 24-inch barrel, probably to 26, maybe even a 30-inch barrel.
Now, actually, it's going to go from a minimum of 18.5 all the way up to 28. So, the big...
Would this, a package like the old Remington 1100s, that would have had 4 barrels with it?
Well, no, this one is like I said, this one is it's a regular 12 gauge, but it is the auto loader. So, what is called an autoloader is basically a semi-automatic shotgun. You're not going to pull the trigger down and it's not going to empty out its internal magazine. You're going to pull the trigger, it's going to go boom. You're going to pull the trigger, it's going to go boom.
Would you consider a short-barreled semi-automatic shotgun, or do you find that to be overkill?
Well, and I think that number one, it's going to be rare to find. Number two, I think that, like I said, you're going to definitely need to put in some practice with it, and to be able to find out how it patterns. You're going to get a different pattern with a short barrel shotgun than you're going to get from a long barrel shotgun. You're going to get decreases in muzzle velocities as well. So, there's a lot of factors to consider, but I think overall the biggest factor is that normally if you're having to resort to using a shotgun in self-defense, you're going to be in a very stressful, unfamiliar situation. And that situation is going to be that you have the fight or flight personal response, and that for a lot of folks that are not practicing shooters or people that deal with stressful situations and have to react to it much like a soldier would, that can be the difference between fumbling around with something and handling it as second nature would be.
Now, military shotguns. Right now, the United States military is using the Model 590. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And the Benelli M1.
Yes.
Now, the Benelli M1 is a semi-automatic shotgun.
So, yep. And then you also have, like I said, the 590, which has the ubiquitous barrel shroud.
It does, and it does not have a shoulder thing that goes up.
Yeah.
It's very, very safe for the children. The 590 has a 20-inch barrel. It's a pump shotgun, and it has an 8-round internal mag. It does not come from the factory with a plug for hunting. The 590 is considered a defense shotgun.
Right.
And eight rounds of 12 gauge are actually 8 rounds in the magazine, 1 in the chamber. That gives you 9 rounds of get the hell out of my yard.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that most folks prefer to use these Mossberg 12-gauge pump shotguns for their 3-gun competitions. And for folks who don't know, your 3-gun competitions are usually a pistol, a carbine action rifle, and a shotgun. And you run the obstacle course, firing at different targets, getting your heart rate up, and seeing how you're able to hit your targets in a certain amount of time. And for folks who haven't had a chance to do that, you might want to go out there and look and see where some 3-gun action is in your area.
It does have a tendency to kick the heart rate up a little bit. I've had the opportunity to shoot in a fun house, and I'll tell you, it was an eye opener. Things that you think that you would be okay with, you find you need to learn a few steps.
Yeah, certainly, and like I said,
and I mean that in the footwork. It's moving and shooting is an art. It's completely different than standing at a range and or even plinking at some cans or something. When you have to move and shoot, it's a completely different world to be in.
Well, and that's the thing. We've got a comment in there about Dan's loving the pump action shotgun, and I just dropped in there that pump action shotguns have stood the test of time since they were developed. They're the most popular type of shotgun.
Shout out to John Moses Browning once again.
Yeah, the pump shotgun is probably the most affordable type shotgun that you can get in the United States, and I'm going to say that it affords you a level of accuracy that you cannot get with a semi-automatic shotgun. The semi-automatic shotgun is going to revert some of those gases that normally escape the barrel in order to go ahead and recycle that next round, whereas on a pump you can maintain your field of view, sliding that action forward and racking that next round without ever taking your eyes off. And whereas on a semi-automatic, there is a little bit of recoil that does tend to sway you away, and you have to reacquire that target a little bit more difficultly.
I personally like the implied psychological effect of racking the shotgun. I've never had to use that, but it is a wake-up call.
Yeah, and here's the thing. For the person who is going ahead and attempt to break and enter a dwelling, which, by the way, is already a crime. So we need common sense breaking and entering legislation. There's probably nothing more that is going to have them, have a second thought about it as if they hear the action on a pump action shotgun. Or any action that matter. I mean, I don't think that you're going to be able to make as big a deal of it without ever having to pull the trigger as if you have a very loud action shotgun. And
you can find many of the pump action shotguns reasonably priced. Something that's interesting is Hawk Industries out of China. They're making probably a better quality 870 copy than Remington is actually making a better quality 870. It's really kind of sad that a venerable line like the 870 has really kind of fallen second fiddle to an import Chinese shotgun that's copying it.
Well, reverse engineering has its benefits. Michael, we're getting long in the show. I definitely need to hit some firearm safety.
Absolutely. everybody, first rule of firearm safety is the firearm is loaded until you physically and visually inspect that it is not loaded. So go ahead, remove that magazine, pull the slide back, pop that bolt open, flip that cylinder out, make sure that there's no bullet, and you're not going to put another bullet in that chamber. Rule number 2 is know what your target is and know what is beyond your target at all times. Rule number 2 is do not cover anything with the shotgun or with the firearm that you do not wish to destroy. Rule number 3 is know what is your target and what is beyond your target at all times. And rule number 4, I was really trying to get to this, is please do not keep that booger hook on the bang switch until you are ready to fire the weapon. The weapon cannot discharge unless you pull the trigger. And once again, I have seen a few news stories in the last week that said that the gun just went off. It didn't. Somebody pulled the trigger. So don't give the forces that are trying to take away our rights any more ammunition than they've already got.
Right, and it's you read the stories every day. The latest one is that a young woman hunter set a loaded shotgun on the ground out at her duck blind, and her canine companion stepped on the trigger housing and discharged the firearm into the hunter's foot. Having been treated at 2 hospitals and subsequently released, she'll probably think twice about doing that, but in the future.
And that does happen, and that happens with people who are very, very familiar with firearms. It's happened to a friend of mine where he was out and he had his little ATV, his side-by-side thing. I think it's a Polaris, and he put the shotgun in the bed of the Polaris, and the dog did step on it and shot right through the side of the Polaris. Thankfully, he's aware enough and cognizant enough of keeping the muzzle not covering him or anybody else in the vehicle. But yeah, you got to be mindful. Dogs put their feet wherever a dog wants to put their feet.
Yeah, you can't blame the dog, but you can always blame the gun. No. You can always blame the gun.
Always blame the gun.
But I look at it from the other way, is because they're definitely going to go ahead and have the option of being called a incorrigible hound. So I think that's quite interesting that we don't ever look to hold those dogs accountable when they do shoot.
Yeah, we need dog registration and dogs to go through background checks and things like that. The insanity never ends, it seems.
Yeah. Well, it's got it. Where does the hour go?
Tonight was a fast one. I'm telling you, I probably made about 60 miles.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for us to get out here and chat, Michael. I'm glad we get a chance to talk on a weekly basis at the maximum. I mean, the minimum we're talking every other day or so. Definitely enjoy being able to talk and converse and get some of those points in from our listeners in chat. Want to give a big shout out to Jules. Thanks for having us on here, and all our PrimerTime listeners. You guys keeping us going and listening to us and talking about what we like. So thanks a lot,
Nick. I really appreciate the fact that you and I can discuss something that we find to be relevant, something that is really a passion for both of us, and really we've got a gift to be able to be on this platform and surrounded by some really, really great programming. Jules puts in effort that you can't imagine. Brandon Turbeville has some of the best analysis of the Middle East that's going on right now. You really can't beat UCY for the content, and it's commercial free. I mean, who wants to listen to commercials? I mean, unless we're selling something.
which we're not, but if we were, we're listening for sponsors.
That's right. So any 22 long rifle manufacturers out there, we will show your shit.
Dos Equis as well. We'll be the most interesting radio show in the world. Thanks, folks. We'll see you next week.
Thanks a lot, everybody. UCY.TV, your home for everything.